Aha! Good morning and cheers to everyone. Hope you're all doing fantastic. Well, I'm gonna move this plant out of my way because it's clogging my space. There we go. Got the camera set up. It's 7 a.m. It's actually about 7:19. That's usually about the time when I get going. And I just thought I would make this video this morning because it's just a beautiful day. And it's funny because lately I haven't really had the subjects I talk about are dependent upon what's in my mind at the time. So sometimes I'm thinking about things that are kind of irrelevant. And so I haven't made as many videos lately. So I thought I'd get up this morning and I checked some YouTube comments, and I thought, well, I'll just use one of the comments as kind of a catalyst for making a video. I wanted to talk about children for a minute. Having kids, it was a video I made the other night. And towards the end I said, well, I gotta go now, I have to read my kids a book. And one of my subs, Phil, he asked, why do you say you have to or need to go, read the kids a book? Why shouldn't it be something that you want to do? And we messaged back and forth a couple times, but I thought by making this video I would kind of make my point a little clearer. Being a parent is one of the most rewarding and challenging jobs that anyone will ever face. Having kids puts you in a humble position, especially when they're young, to where you will do anything for them, and that continues. The oxytocin, the bond between you and that kid, is often so strong that there's really nothing you would do. A parent would sacrifice their life in a second for their children. That being said, it doesn't mean that a parent wants to always do stuff with their kids. It doesn't mean, I should say, there are certain needs or wants of the kid, even if they're things that are absolutely necessary. For example, a parent doesn't want to go shopping and spend a whole bunch of money on stuff, clothes and food, but they have to. And a person may say, well, a parent should want to do those things for their kid. Well, of course they do. That's a given. But any parent who denies that there's a little bit in them that says, man, I wonder what life would be like if I hadn't had kids, well, then they just haven't got to the point where they've really analyzed their emotions yet. Now, for me, I have, I guess, quite a different story than a lot of people my age. A lot of people my age have kids, maybe two kids that are, between the ages of 2 and 20 or 2 and 10 or whatever. My oldest son's turning 21 this year. I have been a father, basically a responsible, somewhat responsible parent since 1998. That was almost 20 years ago, and my youngest right now is 3 years old, so that means I will be there till 2038. So 40 full years of my life is put into having kids around, and so someone who really inspired me was Manly Hall, and this is probably why I have some of this attitude. And this is coming from a guy who, an elder man who had children, who understands children and what it means and how important that bond is. And he says that the biggest mistake that a lot of people make is having children and using those children to escape their own lives, to the point where the parent is living vicariously through the child. They're giving the child everything they want, not creating a life for themselves as a parent out of guilt, as if, well, I'm raising children right now, I shouldn't be working on anything for myself. And this is totally preposterous, and I think a lot of people don't do enough for themselves while they have children. And then when their children leave the nest, they have nothing to look back on. In fact, many couples break up after kids leave because the couples are forced to look at each other again, and not just the kids. They can't force their love off onto the kids when they don't have it for each other. And often that's overlooked. But Manly Hall was talking one time about grandparents and how often grandparents live vicariously through their grandkids and want to give their grandkids all the spoiled things that they didn't have, or that they didn't give their kids, because it's a lot easier to spoil them and have them walk away. See, my mom was like that, and now she's been staying with us for a while because she needed a place. Well, she's not like that anymore. She's not giving them treats all the time and snacks and trying to get them to like her and spoil them. That's completely disappeared now that she's living here, because she realizes that the repercussions of that are severe. Whenever she used to come over, first thing that the kids would ask is, "Do you have a sucker?" Or, "What do you have for me? What did you get for me?" And after a while, a person starts to realize this is what kids are. They are me machines. All they will care about is themselves. They don't understand love yet. They understand the need of another and the love of a parent, but they don't understand the morals and values and why we do things. And as a parent, we instill that in our children. But at one time, we have to step back and ask, how do we know that our morals and values are really the right ones? In other words, should I be raising my child to be a functioning member of society and get a good job? Or should I be raising my kid to completely ignore society and go his own way? In both ways, he'll suffer. In the first way, he'll be sucked into the system and he'll be a number. And he'll probably look back on me and go, "Damn, Dad, why don't you prepare me for the reality of life instead of just the surface of society?" Whereas if I'd raised them to not worry about school or anything like that and say, just live your life and live free. Like somebody pointed this out to me, they said, "Well, if you can do that for your child, but what if they grow up and they're mad at you for never forcing them to go to school? You know, what if they're angry because you never instilled more of that societal motivation?" In other words, you're a hippie parent with a businessman kid, you know, and you don't know what your kid's going to be like, and some of it's due to how you raised them, some of it's due to how things they learned and the people they hung out with. But the parent has a huge influence, of course. But remembering that we are not our children, and we don't need to feel guilty if we need time alone or by ourselves. And so if your child says, "Hey, will you do this for me or do this for me?" say, "Okay, I have to go do this." It is something you have to go do, because if you don't, you'll feel guilty about it, but you know that it's something that isn't necessary to do. In other words, let's say you don't. Anyway, you want your child to be happy. I guess the line is, where do you draw the line? You should say, "Oh, I need to go buy my kid new clothes." Well, what if he has his old clothes are fine? Do you need to go buy the new clothes? No. You want to, because you want to have your kid, you know, I don't know. I don't give a shit about clothes. I never have. My kids are going to grow up like ragamuffins like I did, man. You know, whatever fits, right? I don't care about styles. I was never into the latest and the greatest or the coolest thing in life. But I know that I can't use that the way I was to determine how my kids are. It's not fair. And Manly Hall was talking about that. I forgot to finish that. He was talking about how the grandparents, you know, often they will go and live vicariously through the children, their children's children, or their grandchildren, because once a parent has their children leave the nest, they really don't know what to do anymore sometimes. So I guess this is my long way of saying that it's okay to be a parent that's sometimes just had it or needs to step away for a minute. It's okay to feel a little bit obligated to do certain things, because after all, we have to take care of ourselves. Because self comes first. It does. Children always come first before the self. Family comes before the self. But what I mean is that when everybody's provided for, everyone's fed, everyone's happy, and then say your kid's bugging you to go get them something or play something in particular, and you need your time, there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to give up all your time to your children, or all your time to your spouse, or all the time to your family. But you do have to give up a lot of it. So, I figure if I'm going to take the 40 prime years of my life and raise children, then I have to figure out what I want to do too. And that's kind of tough. You work back and forth between being a family person and trying to be start a business or get your own thing going. For me, it's always been selfishness yet sacrifice, and it's a hard thing to describe. Like, I find myself being selfish with small things in life. Like, no, I just want, this is mine kind of thing. This is my little corner, just and on the other hand, I just want to give everything I have away to people who need it. Families, friends, just anybody. I'm not a possessive person, so in other words, I'm not working towards some end where where my kids are in the way of my business or my future, because that's a bad look. That's a bad outlook on it. I think what it would be more like is just I need a few minutes of my own too, and I don't get a lot, I guess, being a stay-at-home dad, because I'm here all the time with the children. 99% of the time. Yeah, I need some me time sometimes too. So, if you're a parent, you're going through any type of guilt over whether or not you should have your own time, or if you feel guilty for saying, "Oh, great, the kid wants something again," don't worry about it. It's okay. They're kids. They need your help, but they're humans. They're strong. They don't need us to direct them. You've seen how children grow up without parents. Yeah, they have some harsh times, but a lot of them grow up to be really strong people. In other words, it's not just the parents that make the kid who they are, and we have to remember that. We're just there to kind of walk alongside them and help them to find what they want in life. So that's my thought for the day.